All right, so a thing we love to do with our daughter, Raya, is go to museums of illusions. This is all her idea. And in a museum of illusions, you see all kinds of things that appear real and are not, or are confusing in some way. And in a museum of illusions, there's always a mirror room. A mirror room shows you infinite reflections of yourself. But in those infinite reflections, as the reflections extend outward toward infinity, you may find something beyond the self. And that is perhaps why Jewish tradition understands mirrors not only as reflections, but as portals. And such a mirror portal appears in our parsha, in our Torah portion. In Parashat Vayechel, we hear about the making of the sacred things for the portal sanctuary, that is the dwelling place for the divine presence, that is to be set up in the wilderness. Each implement from the holy curtain to the poles of the ark and the sockets that hold them is described in loving detail. Close to the end, in Exodus 38:8, we hear how Bezalel, the chief artist of all these sacred artifacts, makes the bronze washing laver that stands at the entrance to the sacred space. This laver will be used to wash the hands and feet of the Kohanim, the priests, as they enter to make offerings. Bezalel makes this washing laver out of mirrors. And these are not just any mirrors. They are the mirrors of the women who serve at the entrance of the tent of meeting. I'm not making this up. Go look in Exodus, it's there. Now, there are many midrashim about these women. Some say that these women who donate their mirrors are Hebrew women who use the mirrors to entice their husbands when they were tired out from slavery and reproduce the generations, and thus the mirrors became sacred. Some, like the scholar Ibn Ezra, say almost the opposite, that these women had completely dedicated themselves to prayer and gave away their mirrors as a sign of discarding worldly vanity. But I note that these women at the entrance to the sacred tent have a title. They are called tzovot, singular tzova, plural tzovot. They should have taught this in Hebrew school, but I guess they didn't. The root of tzovot is tzava, which is a root that means to serve together as a group. We find it in the phrase Adonai Tzevaot, God of hosts, or the word tzava, army. But the root tzava also means to serve as a group in a sacred way. In Numbers 8:24, for example, we hear about the Levites who came litzvo tzava, to do service at the tent of meeting. So the tzovot are clearly doing sacred work. We could call them priestesses, or ministers, or just tzovot. We hear about them again in the book of Samuel, which further suggests that the tzovot were an institution in ancient Israel. But why do the tzovot have mirrors? And what is the nature of these mirrors? Certainly, mirrors are used for beautification. But mirrors, as I said, are also portals. In fact, the Kabbalists who read this parasha understand the mirrors of the tzovot to be a representation of the ultimate source of prophecy, the place from which the prophets draw their visions. You see, in Hebrew, the word vision, mar'eh, and the word mirror, mar'ah, are almost identical, and both come from the root to see. The mirrors of the tzovot are thus portals to divine wisdom and truth. The great Jewish poet, Ibn Gabirol of 13th century Spain, imagined that the souls in the other world who need to see God will need the mirror portals of the tzovot, that they will use the tzovot mirrors, right, in order to see the divine. And another source from that same time period suggests that the 10 sfirot, the 10 aspects of divinity that are so central to the Kabbalah, are all called the mirrors of the tzovot. The dreams and visions of prophets are also often called by the term aspakalaria, which is another word for mirror. Some prophets have a bright mirror. Some prophets have a dark mirror in which things are not so clear. And in fact, the Shekhinah, the Kabbalistic term for the divine presence hovering in our corporeal world, also has the epithet aspaklaria, the mirror. She echoes us, and yet she also reflects the transcendent realms to us and through us. She is both reflection and portal. Another commentator, Yosef ben Shalom Ashkenazi, writes in his 14th century commentary on the Book of Creation, "In her can be seen all the mirrors of the tzovot, and all the looking glasses, and all that can be found the way that one sees forms in a looking glass." So in this view, God's presence is a hall of mirrors, a surface that reflects the multiple forms of our embodied physical nature, and yet shows us something of infinity. Kabbalah scholar Melila Hellner-Eshed writes that the Zohar describes in its essence a cosmic healing process in which the divine mirrors and is mirrored by the human, and vice versa. If we turn this teaching toward the human realm, it perhaps suggests that it is our echoing and reflecting each other, our mirror neurons, if you will, that promote healing and transformation in our world. In more recent Jewish times, you can clearly see the power of mirrors in many Jewish practices. Think of the custom of covering the mirrors in a shiva house. A Russian Jewish folk tradition says not to look in a mirror at midnight because you might meet a dibuk, a wandering spirit. A Syrian Jewish tradition suggests that if you do look into a mirror at midnight on Tisha B'Av, on the fast day of Tisha B'Av, it will show you your beshert. However, this could be unlucky for your beshert, according to the tradition, so maybe don't try this at home. In Morocco, a Jewish bride was given a mirror as a protective object. And a mirror was thrown into a mikveh before the wedding as a way to dispel spirits, perhaps to reflect them back upon themselves. And sometimes mirrors with oil were used for divination. So those mirrors of the gateway keepers known as the tzovot packed a punch, according to the mystics. It wasn't just that Bezalel, the artist, needed the bronze. These were visionary portals that became the washing basin. Maybe this gift of mirrors was also to turn the washing laver itself into a portal, an entry into the spirit realm, since it stood at the entrance to the holy space. The tzovot were the original keepers of that portal. The text says that they served at the entrance to the tent of meeting. They were portal keepers. That was their role. And we should also note that water, the other necessity for a washing basin, is also reflective, also a mirror, and also a portal. Since in the biblical understanding, water can be used to transform someone from one spiritual state to another. These traditions suggest that the washing basin, which was water and a vessel of mirrors, was much more than a purification tool. It was more than a way of getting clean before entering to perform a sacrifice. Formed of the mirrors of sacred portal workers, perhaps it was a place to deeply see the self and also to see beyond the self. Maybe one has to do both to participate in sacred service. Irony of ironies, according to Leviticus, the women to whom these mirrors belonged were then not allowed into the holy space the washing basin was a preparation for. We might even say that the power of the mirrors was co-opted, as sacred tools have sometimes been co-opted across the generations by people in power. But we could also be more generous and imagine this as a collaboration and not a co-opting. After all, there was a time when access to the sacred was not so restricted. Scholar Mark Luchter reminds us that at Shiloh, where the tabernacle was set up for over 300 years, women played a significant role. I would like to think of the kior as a connector between the mirror prophecies of the tzovot and the service of the kohanim. And seeing this connection perhaps invites us to consider what it means to be a holy portal keeper. Years ago, I was part of a ritual where I was asked to look into a mirror and truly see myself. And I looked in the mirror, and then I looked down, and I turned away. And the portal keeper who was on duty, yes, there was one, said to me, "You did not really look." I remember the sound of her voice to this day. I think I thought it was vain to look, especially during a moment of prayer. I think it was also hard to see how others see me and experience the feelings of that. I also did not want to take up a lot of time since there was a long line of people behind me waiting to use the sacred mirror. I had my reasons. But the portal keeper was there to mirror me, to show me myself, and to remind me how necessary and valuable it was for me to take the time to notice my own being and to deal with the feeling of taking up space in the world. She was the real mirror that day. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov writes that when we greet someone else with a shining face, we can help that person see themselves fully as if in a mirror. Maybe this verse about making a washing laver from the holy mirrors invites us not only to see ourselves more clearly, but to be mirror portals. Loving reflections of one another's sacred humanity. In a time when the practice of seeing the full humanity of another person is getting scarce, it feels like this teaching's importance is growing by the day. We are now in a time when it is necessary to discern very clearly what is real, what is right, and what is our role in building the future that we hope for. There are millions of lives at stake, and reality is rushing us in the face very fast. And in this time, although I wish my looking glass were brighter and clearer than it is, I want to leave you with a story that I hope maybe will help all of us think about it, at least. The Talmud tells a tale about 4 sages who go on a mystical journey to the upper worlds. This mystical journey is dangerous because direct perception of divine reality can apparently ruin a person. This adventurous group is led by Rabbi Akiva, who gives the group a very odd piece of advice. He says, when you come to the stones of pure marble, do not say, water, water. I'm going to say it again. It's not going to help, but I'm going to say it again. When you come to the stones of pure marble, do not say, water, water. He's taking them to the other world, and this cryptic thing is what he has for instructions. Thousands of years of ink have been spilled over this instruction. And what occurs to me is that stones of pure marble are so smooth they look like water, right? That you could mistake them for water. That's a mirror, right? Right? It's a mirror that they're looking into. The journeyers are looking into a mirror. Now, why, as they encounter this sacred mirror, must they not say, water, water? So you might think the problem is that if you come to a stone floor and you think it's water, you will think that you can't go any further, and you'll be stuck. And you don't want to be stuck while you're on a mystical journey. Or maybe the problem is simply that if you think stone is water, you have mistaken the truth. And mistaking the truth is dangerous, especially in the other world. But the Zohar teaches something else. The Zohar teaches about this, that the problem is the repetition of the word water. Saying water, water implies a separation between one kind of water and another, says the Zohar. But in the hidden worlds, there is no separation at all between the waters or between anything and anything else. Everything is one there. And here, if we're looking at it the right way. The vast marble mirror that our journeyers are looking into perhaps is meant to reflect this underlying oneness back at them. So when we encounter the sacred mirror, wherever we encounter it, we should take the time to see what we find there. As my portal keeper reminded me a while back. And when we look, and we must look, into the mirror of humanity that is our broken world, and see ourselves there, may we find the courage not to wash our hands of it all, but instead to learn from the holy washing laver, made of the mirrors of the Tzovot, that we are all, no matter what divides us, mirrors of the divine image. And in the vast room of mirrors that is our world, we must find the capacity to be holy mirrors for the light in one another. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.